Plans and mechanics. When you plan a trip somewhere, there are all sorts of facets to your planning. Each facet requires your attention, and ignoring one could be potentially upsetting, inconvenient, or worse. This section should help with the practical aspects of planning and enjoying a trip to England. Here are some of the things I shall cover. How do I plan a trip to England? When do I go? How much will it cost? Where will I stay? How will I get around? What shall I visit? What if something goes wrong? Many folks dream about the magic of England. However, many do not grab this dream. Why not? It's too expensive, you say. I could never afford a trip to Europe. Less expensive than a week at Disney World, I say. For 6 people on a 3-week England vacation in June 2008, including airfare, rental car, B&B accommodation and trip insurance, we spent about $2,600 per person. Yes, that's it. Now, this doesn't include food, petrol, gasoline, or souvenirs, of course, but it did include a wonderful vacation to a truly magical place. Also, prices change all the time, especially for airfare. 2008 was many years ago, and prices are obviously higher for everything now. Any information I publish on hard airfare numbers will be obsolete by the time you read it, but I can and will give examples below. So, how do you get such a deal? Well, it takes patience, research, and the ability to make decisions when you need to. I will take you through, step by step, how to get the best deal for an English vacation. Decisions: why, who, what, where, when, and how. Why? You should start by thinking about why you want to go to England. Do you want to touch the roots of your ancestors? Or experience an ancient culture? Have you always felt an unexplainable pull? Or do you just want to get away from the screaming kids, or make your coworkers jealous? There are many reasons why you may want to go to England. No need to pick one. Pick several. Use these reasons to help plan your trip. Who? WHO's going? You? Your spouse? Your children or parents? Your best friend? A huge group of 20 friends? This decision makes a big difference in accommodation and transportation choices. I have learned, through trial and many errors, that there are certain people who travel well together, and those who don't. For instance, I will no longer travel with a mixed group of friends, spouse, and/or family. I have determined, in order to keep my sanity, I shall only travel with one type of companion at a time. Otherwise, I become a funnel through which all complaints about others are poured. Choose wisely to avoid problems. What? What to do? Are you interested in touring the pubs? Ruined or restored castles and abbeys? Cities or charming villages? Your trip doesn't have to have a theme, of course, but it is more fun if you do, and helps you to plan when your mind is a blank. Perhaps you've seen a movie or read a book set in Yorkshire, and want to visit the area? Or maybe you dance and want to learn Morris dancing, or you play an instrument and want to learn how to play the lute. There is so much to see and do in England that your imagination can take flight. Where? Where to go, of course, depends on what you are doing. It also ties into when you want to go. It probably needs to be considered as a package deal, so to speak. Where includes the character of place, towns and villages, or bustling city. Mountains or patchwork hills. Coastline or the Lake District. Each city has its own character and a variety of places to stay, from historic B&Bs to luxury hotels. English cities are compact, so choose accommodation with parking, as you won't need the car, as most things are within walking distance. Villages used as a base of exploration can be wonderful, and you get more chances to meet the locals. Urban, suburban, or rural, you will be spoiled for choice. More details on this decision are explored under Why below. When? When is an important consideration. While the weather is, on average, nicer in the summer and the days are longer, the trip will also be more expensive and more crowded. Alternatively, while the winter is cheaper and you have things more to yourself, the weather is harsher. Most traditional tourist attractions will be closed or some natural sites inaccessible in poor weather. Also, the days will be much shorter with an average of 7 hours of daylight. It's up to you to determine your comfort zone. The peak season is June, July, and August. The shoulder seasons of March, April, and May, and September, October, and November may offer the best of both worlds and is my preferred time for traveling. Except for right around Christmas and Easter, the winter months, December through February, offer the best deals, but also the highest possibility of weather difficulties and limited open attractions. How? How are you going to get there, and how will you get around once you are there? Usually, the easiest answer to the former question is via airplane. Airfare will be a good chunk of your travel budget, but with some research and patience, you can find a decent fare. Keep in mind that some websites quote the base fare with taxes and then have additional fees, so make sure you are comparing apples to apples when doing your research. While there are now regulations set to have the total fare, including taxes, displayed, that won't include baggage fees and other optional add-ons. There are several sites I go to in order to find comparable flights, such as the airlines themselves, but also Kayak and Google Flights. The cost is usually higher from smaller airports, and from those farther away, such as California, as compared to East Coast departures. And check the most direct flights to save on travel time and fewer connections. For example, California to London Heathrow, total flight time around 10 hours direct. But if you have a layover in, say, Newark, that adds a couple hours of flight time as well as the layover, which could be 3 or 4 hours. The latter question, of how to travel once you are on the ground, has more options. While my favorite, by far, is to rent my own car and wander around the moors and hills on my own, this is not the only option. You can travel to some of the main destinations by train or even by ferry or go via tour bus, either an all-inclusive tour or shorter day trips. You can also hike or cycle. You can even combine methods of travel, such as drive or train to Berwick-upon-Tweed and get the ferry to Lindisfarne. Since COVID-19, costs of many things have gone up, so everything is still in flux. Rental cars, in particular, have skyrocketed, due to companies selling off excess inventory during the pandemic. I recommend researching early, reserving early, and check often to ensure you have a good deal. Renting a car. The first thing to remember is that all rentals have compulsory insurances included in the rental rate. These minimum insurances include CDW, collision damage waiver, VTP, vehicle theft protection, LLI, limited liability insurance, and location surcharges, as well as the cost of the rental itself and VAT, value-added tax. Understand what each of these insurances pay and consider optional insurances on collection, which include PLI, personal liability insurance, SCDW, super CDW, TPI, third-party insurance, and TNWC, tire/tire and windscreen/windshield coverage. CDW covers damage to the vehicle. Period. If you're in an accident, this compulsory insurance repairs or replaces the vehicle. Most CDW coverage only pays up to 80 to 90% of damages and the renter covers the balance. SCDW is the same as CDW but covers that percentage which is left over from traditional CDW coverage. This covers 100% of the vehicle. If you're in an accident and there are injuries, LLI will pay medical costs for those injured if you hit another vehicle. It will not pay for those injured in your vehicle. PLI covers injured passengers in your vehicle. CDW/SCDW and LLI/PLI are often covered as part of your travel insurance package. If they are, you do not have to buy them again as part of the vehicle rental contract. Be sure to bring a copy of your travel insurance with you for proof upon picking up your rental vehicle. TNWC is not compulsory insurance, but one you should consider adding on. As part of the standard rental contract, if you puncture a tire or a stone cracks the windscreen, you are responsible for repair, which can be as much as £100 for a tire and £500 for the windscreen. Adding TNWC onto your contract will pay these damages so you don't have to. Read the fine print when getting rental quotes online. Some companies do include more than the basic insurances in their quote. Most credit cards issued in the US will cover travel insurance on vehicles rented in England. However, many of them have a value cap of $50,000 for the rented vehicle. This largely applies to luxury models. Depending on the size of car you rent and the exchange rate that day, it may be that the car you rent is over that cap, and thus the credit card will not cover it. Also, cars might be more expensive there than the same car would be here. Do your research and be prepared. If you do not have travel insurance coverage on your credit card, you might be able to buy it as part of your travel insurance. Check out Insure My Trip online to see your options. Also, if you get coverage from someone other than the rental company, be aware they may put either a hold on your credit card for several £1,000s or actually charge a deposit to the card, which is refunded when you return the car in good order. While this sounds like the same thing, it is not, as many credit cards charge a 2 to 3% foreign transaction fee for any transaction. This would be charged twice for a deposit and a subsequent refund, so you would be out this fee twice. Do some research ahead of time to see if this is the policy of the rental agency. Their rules can change at any time. Research. Find out everything about everything, then throw half of it away. The internet is many things. Addicting, yes. Maddening, yes. But it is also incredibly helpful when doing research, especially about places far from your home. Airfare, accommodation, car rental, and destinations like cities, beautiful beaches, yes, they exist in England, and gloomy castles are all listed somewhere, you just have to find them. The best order of research I've found is as follows. Make up a crazy wish list, anything you and your traveling companions have any interest in seeing. Decide which items are your must-sees, those places you have your heart set on. Plot out these must-sees on a map of England. See if you can construct a basic progressive itinerary from those spots, incorporating the non-must-sees when you can, trying not to double back on yourself. See if you can find airfare in and out of places logical for the itinerary. Research accommodation along the way. Research ground transportation. The airfares available may define your itinerary somewhat, and the itinerary will help define other items. Just try staying flexible. Itinerary. There is a wealth of information online about places to see, castles and manor houses, museums and historical monuments, special interest workshops, battle sites, and many other places of interest. Most cities and towns, even villages, have their own website with tourist information. In addition, many travel agent websites have great information for the intrepid traveler. Even more, there are websites dedicated to those interested in travel, with wonderful forums for those odd questions. Some of my favorites are listed in the Maps and Resources section at the back of this book. Once you have done exhaustive research of the places you want to see, throw half of it out. Yes, that's right, you will likely end up with a list of 17 things to see in each location, but you will only have time for a third of them, so pick your favorites. I usually list about twice as many as I can possibly see and bold the ones I really want to see. That way, if, for some reason, I have extra time, say, one of my must-sees was closed, or didn't take as long as I had thought it would, I can see some of my second-string choices. Also, do yourself a favor by leaving room in your itinerary for free time, wandering around and getting lost, people watching at a cafe, or just having a pint with the locals. These are usually the most memorable parts of your trip, so leave time for them. You don't want to end up with an itinerary where you are rushing through things so fast you don't see them. While some people prefer a fast-paced vacation, it does sometimes pay off to stop and enjoy what you are seeing, rather than just marking off things you've seen on a checklist, like the Griswolds in European Vacation. Look, kids. Big Ben. Parliament. If you've got the places listed you want to see, look for a pattern. Are they all close to a central location? If so, pick places where you can stay multiple nights and use them as bases of exploration around those regions. Or can they be strung together in a circle over a larger region? If so, spend a couple nights in each place, moving around that circular route. Be visual, pay attention to road maps, plan wisely, and try to avoid crisscrossing or backtracking. Check driving times between places with via Michelin or Google Maps. Then add about 25% to those driving times, as mapping programs don't take into account English roads. They twist and turn, which can keep speeds down lower than the actual posted speed limit. We were driving one road along the border of Scotland and England and ended up back in Scotland 3 times as we searched for Hadrian's Wall. There are hills and valleys, sheep and cattle, tractors and tour buses, and even roadworks. You don't want to spend all of the time driving, trust me. It gets very tiring, especially as you will likely be driving a manual transmission, which are the majority rental cars available. Automatics are available at a higher cost. I try keeping my driving time to around 3 hours at the most and break it up with stops at attractions along the way. I find the most reliable way to figure a distance and time is to multiply the miles by 35 miles per hour to get an average travel time. Example, if I need to travel 50 miles to my next accommodation, at the average speed limit of 35 miles per hour, the drive alone will take approximately an hour and a half. Add on to this the time it takes to get to attractions, then add some additional time for stopping for lunch, photo opportunities, and exploring the side streets and quaint shops. What does that sign say? Let's see where it goes. If you enlist a travel agent to help you design an itinerary, be sure to ask about the agent's personal experience in England. It's quite common for agents to sell custom itineraries but actually never having visited England themselves and thus do not have any real experience. Be sure to work with a professional who specializes in English travel and has hands-on experience and knowledge as a local would. Airfare. This is usually the biggest chunk of your travel budget. There is a definite season for vacationing in England, summer. While many people do go on the peak months of June, July and August, there is indeed a reason why summer is the best. The days are much longer to see sights, warmer weather, less rain and wind, and everything is open. This also means the airfare is the most expensive, as well as hotels. Smaller accommodation, like B&Bs and guest houses, have much the same rates year-round. The shoulder months of March, April, and May, and September, October, and November are becoming more popular, as the weather is still usually decent, and the days aren't incredibly short yet. However, this also means the airfares are creeping up as these become more popular times to travel. Please note some places won't be open in the shoulder and off seasons, many B&Bs, some restaurants, and most attractions may close after October and remain closed until mid-March. If you are in doubt, check the attractions website first to see if your must-see sites are open before making definitive plans. Most sites list daily opening hours, as well as their open season. When I've decided on what I want to see and where I want to stay, I look for the most convenient airports, then I start researching my flights. I go to dozens of websites, sometimes daily, to watch fares before buying. When I've flown to England, I found good fares on a one-day fare sale, which I only knew about due to a fare alert email I had signed up for. The fare was gone in an hour, but I'd pounced on it and got it. Do your research. There are deals out there, but you must train yourself to recognize the deal when you see it. Also consider flying into one city and out of another. This is great for England, as you can fly into London, explore north and west, then fly out of Manchester at the end of your trip. This is called an open-jaw ticket and usually doesn't cost much more, if any, than a normal round-trip ticket. Also, don't forget to check the airline websites. If you find a great fare on Expedia for Delta, Delta might have it cheaper on their own site, and it is usually better to deal directly rather than through a middleman. Some airlines, like Southwest, which isn't international, but could get you to a hub like New York cheaper, may not be listed on price consolidation sites like Travelocity, Kayak, or Expedia. I sign up for airfare alerts when I'm researching fares, so I get quick notification of sales. Airfare Watchdog and Google Flights are great places to keep track of a particular fare, as the site follows airfare ups and downs. You can set up email alerts for when the price rises or drops a particular amount or to a particular level. Some of the consolidation websites do this as well. When you buy your tickets, be sure to read the cancellation policies. Usually, the cheaper the flight, the less flexible the change is allowed. Make sure you are going before you purchase non-refundable, no-change tickets. If you have any reason why you might not be able to make the flight, either pay extra for flexible tickets or get travel insurance that covers flight cancellation. Some fares cover delays or cancellations due to medical reasons, for instance. Keep in mind they usually mean your medical reason, not a child or a parent for whom you need to stay to take care of. Airlines are very strict about cancellations, so be sure to read the fine print before buying your tickets. And after COVID, any that had any coverage of pandemics removed them. Accommodation. Bed and breakfasts and guest houses. Once you have your airfare and itinerary, you know which nights you need accommodation and in which locations. England is wonderfully full of adorable bed and breakfasts. I highly recommend this accommodation choice. The B&Bs in the United States tend to be more upscale and expensive than those in the England, so don't go by American examples. Most B&Bs I've ever been in have been comfortable, clean, cozy, and a delight to stay. B&Bs around the countryside run around £40 to £50 per person sharing per night, PPPN or PPS, and include the traditional full English breakfast. You will pay more dearly for city locations or resort towns, especially during high season. Where B&Bs are generally family homes, larger guest houses are purpose-built B&Bs with higher occupation numbers, perhaps more amenities, and a more extensive breakfast menu, and will have a slightly higher cost. If you are staying in the city, and have more than just a couple people, it may be more economical to rent a flat, an apartment. See the section on self-catering rentals below. Hotels. Hotels usually charge by room rather than per person but are based on two people sharing. Many usually do not include breakfast in the deal, referred to on booking as room only. Hotels are usually more cookie-cutter and sterile. A Hilton is the same in San Francisco as it is in New York, London, and Japan, and they lack the authenticity of a family-run B&B. In my opinion, hotels are a place to stay based on convenience rather than a place to enjoy. However, there are some small family-run hotels in rural areas which may offer you the privacy you want while also adding something interesting to your overall visit to England. Many old country houses have been converted to guest houses and small hotels, which would definitely add interest to your stay in the region, especially if the accommodation has any historic ties to local history. You can also find castle hotels around the country, such as Amberley Castle in West Sussex or Hever Castle in Kent. You can even stay in Alnwick Castle, which was one of the inspirations for Hogwarts in the Harry Potter movies. Prices in these types of accommodation are generally more expensive but would certainly add something special to your trip, especially if you're traveling to England for a special event, like an anniversary or honeymoon. Hostels and other specialist accommodation. Hostels, both regular hostels and youth hostels, camping, caravanning, RV, canal boats, colleges offering dormitory rooms for the summer, are other options for creative accommodation. There is no end of unusual places to stay. Some hostels in England are part of old castles, such as St. Briavels Castle Hostel in Gloucestershire. There are some churches and monasteries that are now B&Bs. Get creative. Self-catering. Self-catering houses are also an option, especially if you have a large group or prefer the privacy of a home-from-home type of accommodation. The biggest downfall is many require a 7-day minimum stay, usually from Saturday to Saturday. Some are willing to rent for short breaks, though, so always check. Once you have decided where you want to stay, make a reservation. Make sure to check the cancellation policies with all accommodation you book. Most B&Bs and guesthouses require a 24 to 48-hour cancellation, and many hotels can be cancelled the morning of arrival. However, self-catering and specialty accommodation usually have a 4 to 6 week cancellation period for a full refund. The time you cancel will dictate how much of your money you get back. Inside that 4 to 6 week period means staged refunds, with service charges increasing the closer to your reservation date. Email is usually the normal option for communication these days. I prefer this method as it leaves a paper trail, and I make sure to bring a copy with me. Keep in mind that not everyone is web-savvy, even if they have a website, so be patient. Some may require a phone call, most will require a credit card to secure bookings, even if it's not charged. This protects the establishment against no-shows. Don't forget the time difference. England is ahead of Eastern Standard Time by 5 hours, and by 8 hours from Pacific Standard Time. Noon in New York and 9 a.m. in San Francisco is 5 p.m. in England. If you're organizing your trip in the evening after work, remember the folks in England could be asleep. Also, when booking your accommodation, not all places in England are going to take credit cards. Those which do may not take American Express or Discover. Those which take credit cards will take MasterCard and Visa. Some are cash only, even if they take a card number for the reservation. Be prepared to pay cash on departure, or make sure you've asked ahead of time. If a host is going to take a deposit or take the full amount on booking, remember you will see a foreign transaction fee on your statement. Ground transportation. My recommendation for getting around England is definitely by renting a car, as discussed earlier. Exceptions would be if you are under or over the age limit for rentals, or maybe you have physical limitations. Also, if you're staying in a major city, like London or York. In places like that, you won't need a car because the city is compact enough to walk. Besides, parking is hard to find and expensive. In the countryside, though, while it is possible to use buses and trains to get around, and certainly many people do, you won't find this an easy option, as it requires a lot of flexibility in your schedule. National rail travels between cities and major towns, but a vast part of the country has no rail travel at all. Getting to villages and remote attractions can be difficult to impossible and very time-consuming. If you are in an organized bus tour, you are obliged to stick to that itinerary, so you can't make a detour on a whim to go find a hidden castle when you see a sign. You can't stay longer at one spot unless you want to get left behind. There is no flexibility with organized tours. If you travel by public bus, you do have some flexibility in your itinerary, but you will be reliant on the bus schedule, which is often inconsistent for arrival and departure times. Now, I know it is scary to think about driving on the wrong side of the road, but it's not really that difficult, especially if you're a good, conscientious driver by nature. It's not so bad as you think, and you will get used to it very quickly. The mind has an incredible ability to mirror and allow you to perform the same tasks, as if mirroring the motions to what you're used to. It helps to have a designated navigator, as the signage in England is a little different from what you may be used to. Signs might only list the name of the next town, or they may add the route number and the distance in miles to other towns on that route. This means you should know the major towns on the way to where you are going, or even the ones just beyond your destination. Most folks have map apps on their smartphones. If you don't have a data plan that you can use abroad, a GPS can still be very helpful. Not only does it help you find places, it helps you find your way back to your B&B. Keep in mind that any map tool is only good if you have a good address for the place. That's not always a given, especially in rural areas. I have made a habit of noting longitude and latitude for places I would be upset if I couldn't find. Another consideration is data. If you have to pay a premium for international data rates, a GPS or a local SIM card for your unlocked phone will be much less expensive than using your map app all day. It can definitely help you find your way back to your B&B if you deliberately get lost during the day, just for the fun of it. Big cities in England don't require a car to get around. In fact, having a car is a liability in London. It's difficult to get around with the heavy traffic. Find parking is challenging unless you know where the few multi-story parking lots are, and it can be expensive both on the street and in the multi-story. Also, London has fantastic public transportation systems, and the major attraction areas are highly walkable. Smaller towns and villages are very walkable as well, so parking for the afternoon and exploring the town by foot is usually the best option. For other big cities, if it's your final stop before returning home, turn in the car before getting to the city, or wait to rent it until you leave to begin your holiday. Gasoline is called petrol in England. Gas is the natural stuff pumped into your home, and is very expensive. At the time of this publication, the cost is running around $7 per gallon. Yes, really. The good news is you can usually get around 45 miles per gallon from economy-size cars. Larger cars get slightly lower miles per gallon. However, filling up a tank can still cost you $100 or more, so budget accordingly. Remember the itinerary you made with estimated driving times? Use that mileage and double it. Yes, double it. You will be going to places, taking day trips, going out for dinner, stopping at brown sign sites, all sorts of side trips. I've gotten decent deals from Auto Europe and from Enterprise Rental. I would advise against renting from a place you've never heard of. Cars can be very expensive, and if there's an issue, it's difficult to fight a fraudulent damage claim from overseas. Having said that, there are a number of privately owned rental companies who have been in business as many as 50 years. See more on the details and problems of renting a car above in the ground transportation section. Other considerations. Okay, you've done your research, gotten your airline tickets, made your reservations for accommodation, and your car rental. Ready to go? Not yet. Travel insurance. You break your leg the week before the trip. Ruined. All your money lost. Not so, grasshopper, as long as you planned ahead and bought the proper travel insurance. If you're booking with a travel agent, remember travel agents, then they'll likely get insurance for your trip as a whole. However, you can still do this if you're self-planning. I use a handy comparison website called Insure My Trip and compare the benefits of different packages. Find out if your own health insurance will cover you on foreign soil. Some credit cards also have built-in travel insurance. Look for things like cancellation insurance in case of medical emergency, reimbursement for lost luggage, additions to the above-mentioned car insurance, etc. Compare the benefits between what you already pay for and what you need to travel and find a travel plan which fits right for your needs. For a small investment, you get a great deal of peace of mind. Keep in mind that in the past, some insurance has covered travel costs in case of a pandemic. Be very vigilant about checking for such language, as a lot of insurances got hit hard during COVID and have removed that coverage across the board. The language you're looking for is trip cancellation coverage that is valid for any reason. Passports and visas. For most people traveling to England, all they need is a valid passport from their country of origin. Some countries might also require some sort of travel visa, but that's not required for US or Canadian citizens. Also, be sure there are no impediments that would cause refused entry, such as a felony record or outstanding warrants. This should be taken care of before you even buy your tickets. Normal processing times for a new passport is 6 weeks, but please give it plenty of leeway, especially if you've already bought non-refundable tickets. This can increase to about 12 weeks without notice. Don't procrastinate. My husband had mailed his application several months before, but while they cashed the check, they ended up losing the application. We only found out about that a few weeks before traveling, because we hadn't gotten a passport yet. We had to pay more for another application and expedited processing. Then, we ended up getting his passport the morning we flew out. We were very nervous, to say the least. U.S. citizens don't need visas for visits of up to 90 days in England, but if you are going somewhere else or staying longer, do read up on the requirements long before your flight and make sure all paperwork is in order. I mentioned earlier that travelers from the U.S. don't require additional documents, but starting in January 2024, anyone traveling to one of 30 countries in Europe will require an EISA's authorization. While England is not currently on that list, make sure that hasn't changed before you go, or if you plan on going to another country on the same trip. Money. England uses the British pound sterling for its currency. The exchange rate fluctuates every day, of course, but it tends to be somewhere between $1 and $1.40 per £1. Cash. I recommend going to your bank and getting some pounds as travel money for the day you land. You can always get more during your stay from the ATM, and/or use your credit card for purchases. The exchange rates through ATMs are usually on par with whatever you get elsewhere, though if your bank charges a high withdrawal fee, I'd minimize the number of transactions. You can get some pre-trip sterling online through companies like AAA or Thomas Cook or order it from your bank. I don't recommend getting a lot, just some emergency funds in case you're stuck somewhere without a working ATM. Alternatively, larger airports have bureau de change desks where you can exchange your money for sterling. Keep in mind the exchange rate is higher in the airport for the convenience. Traveler's checks. Never travel with large amounts of cash. Traveler's checks were an option for many years, but now, you'd be hard-pressed to find any place that accepts or exchanges them. Just don't. ATMs in England. Be sure your bank is part of the link system to access your account in England. Also, you will not be given a choice between two accounts which are connected in your bank. Your ATM card will only have access to your primary account from England, which is often your checking account. You may wish to save hassle while in England by opening a dedicated travel account and getting a new ATM card for that one, and make sure any and all travel funds you wish to access are there. Also, keep in mind that smaller towns and villages might not have an ATM. You may have to travel to a larger town nearby to get cash. I've also noticed some ATMs, often the only one in town, are inside stores, so if the store is closed, so is access to cash. However, as more gas stations open which are parts of small convenience shops, small ATMs in the back of the shops are often installed. Plan accordingly if you're traveling to a remote area, and keep in mind that banks are usually open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekdays, and in the remotest areas, may have sparse hours. Credit cards. Be sure to contact your bank prior to travel, to let them know to expect charges made in England during your travel dates. This will, hopefully, save you the hassle of having your card put on hold, or worse, cancelled, mid-trip and leaving you without your card. Many cards have a travel authorization on the website, where you can enter country and dates of travel. Sometimes their fraud department will still put a hold on, but a phone call can often clear this up. Make sure that you have that phone number handy if it's not printed on the card itself. If you don't have a credit card, or your interest rate is too high, shop around for a card with a good rate. Many, Capital One is one of the few which don't, add on an extra 2% for any foreign transaction, in addition to the 1% Visa/MC charges. You don't want to carry too much cash with you. However, some B&Bs, while preferring cash even if they take credit cards, require reservations made guaranteeing the booking with a credit card to protect them against no-shows. You could also set up a prepaid debit card that is based on sterling and use it throughout the trip, including getting cash from the ATM. I've heard of some issues with American credit cards that use 6-digit PINs in the UK which only uses 4 digits. Be sure your card uses a 4-digit PIN and avoid those problems. Many places in the UK, including England, have now changed over to a chip and PIN format for all credit cards and laser/ATM cards. While the machine in most shops takes both chip and PIN and swipe cards, shop staff may not have been trained how to use the swiper or how to manually enter the card number. You may need to ask for a manager to complete your charge. Packing. Sure, you've packed dozens of times for vacations. What's the big deal? Well, the flight luggage restrictions for carry-on and checked luggage, for one. Airlines have lots of rules, so it behooves you to know them before you get to the airport. Carry-on. Most airlines have their carry-on rules on their websites. Some have weight as well as size restrictions. Airlines differ, but you may find your carry-on must fit under the seat in front of you, even if you intend on putting it in the overhead compartment, and it must not weigh more than around 15 to 20 pounds. Liquid restrictions also need to be obeyed. Check before you go. Right now, any carry-on liquids must be in containers no larger than 3 ounces, 100 milliliters, and they must all fit comfortably in a quart-sized clear Ziploc bag. Liquids include gels and semi-solid things, roll-on deodorant and toothpaste, so do be careful. When in doubt and you absolutely don't need it for your flight, check it in your luggage or leave it at home. Jackets and medical equipment, like CPAP machines, are not counted toward your carry-on limits, though cameras and laptop computers are. I've taken heavy things from my carry-on and put them in my purse, which is rarely weighed. You can also stuff the pockets of the jacket. I packed some of my heavy electronic stuff, like chargers and batteries, into my CPAP machine case. It's highly recommended you carry prescriptions with you rather than putting them in your checked luggage. In the event your luggage gets misdirected, you will still have your medication. Prescription medicines must be labeled in the traveler's name. Be sure to get your doctor to write out a copy of your prescription and carry it with you in a safe place. If you lose your medication, bring your prescription to a chemist to have refilled. If you're carrying baby food or formula, it may need to be tested at the gate. Where adult food is concerned, you will be asked at security to dispose of things like uneaten food and open bottles and cans of water or colas. Visit the Transport Security Administration (TSA) website for lists of acceptable carry-ons and restrictions. This list will also help you to know what you can bring on board to entertain yourself or your kids, such as electronic games, music players, laptops, tablets, e-readers, etc. The site will also provide you with information on things like knitting needles, crochet hooks, scissors, etc. Keep in mind that even if it's on the TSA acceptance list, it's purely up to the discretion of the officers at security. Don't bring your expensive needles and hooks in the event they're not allowed, and you have to throw them away. Checked luggage. Some airlines charge hefty fees for overweight luggage and limit the number of pieces each person can check. While airline restrictions vary, for long-haul flights into the UK, the maximum weight allowance is usually about 50 pounds, and some airlines can allow up to 2 50-pound suitcases per person. Also, if you're in the habit of locking your suitcases, be sure to use TSA-approved locks. If inspectors need to access your suitcases for any reason, they have a master key to open those locks, or they will cut off non-TSA locks to inspect. If there is an inspection, you'll know when you get home to unpack and find an inspection notice on top of your items. TSA-approved locks are available in most travel sections in department stores and travel shops, as well as stores like Target, Walmart, etc. Don't put valuables or medicines in your checked luggage. I cannot emphasize this enough. yet people do it every day. Cameras, laptops, anything fragile, anything essential, must go in your carry-on. There's even a reality show based on people buying up abandoned and lost luggage, hoping for hidden treasure inside. Of course, this makes your carry-on heavy, so some decision-making is sometimes necessary. As you've seen above, there are strict weight limits for carry-ons. I usually put 1 day's worth of clean clothes in my carry-on, in case the checked luggage is delayed or lost, as well as electronics, meds, and travel documents. If you have something really valuable, consider leaving it at home. Do you really need the diamond stud earrings on the trip, or will the cubic zirconia work? My last trip, I did carry-on only for the 16-day trip. My luggage was delayed too many times in the past. On my last trip to Scotland, my baggage was delayed for 5 days. Luckily, I had a change of clothes and most of my required paperwork, so it was okay, even if annoying. Bring a soft-sided carry-on or luggage, as it will likely expand with the things you buy on your trip. Some are expandable with zippered sides. Or just bring an extra duffel bag to check on the way back. It's much less annoying to wait 5 days for your dirty clothes to arrive home than it is for your clean clothes to arrive on vacation. Jet lag. The bane of travelers. Many people suffer from jet lag when they travel across time zones. If you are in the eastern US, you will be 5 hours ahead in England. If you are from the western US, that increased to 8 hours. While everyone's body reacts differently, here are some tips that I've followed or heard in the past that might help. Hydrate. Drink plenty of water during your flights. This helps keep your body functioning normally and reduces travel stress. Drinking alcohol can make the problem worse, so go easy on the cocktails, as they can dehydrate you. Sleep. If you can sleep on the overnight trip, do so. Even if it is only a couple of hours, this will help. I usually use earplugs and eye shades to block noise and light. I try not to sleep very much the night before the flight, so I sleep better on the plane. Your mileage may vary. Routine. I tend to go to bed an hour earlier for each of the 3 days before my trip. For instance, if I normally go to bed at 10 p.m., I will go at 9 p.m. 3 days before my flight, 8 p.m. 2 days before, 7 p.m. the night before, waking earlier each morning until the day of departure. That way, your body is a little more acclimatized to your new schedule, resulting in a smaller jolt once you arrive. Activity. When you do wake up, make sure to try to get some sunshine first thing. This wakes up your body and lets your circadian rhythm settle in. The day I arrive, I usually make sure to do things all day, and try to avoid napping. Occasionally I give in, but make sure it's only an hour or 2. I don't plan anything heavy, like a 2-hour drive or climbing a mountain. Light activity, some sightseeing, walking around the town. Then I usually crash around 9 p.m. and sleep like the dead. The next morning, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to tackle the world. Getting into your normal sleep pattern right away helps. Wake at your normal time and go to bed at your normal time. Even on arrival day. Sugar levels. Invariably, my husband has a sugar crash halfway through the 2nd day of the trip. We keep regular meal times and top up with power bars to counter any problems. Your body goes through a lot of stress through travel, especially if you are older or have muscular/metabolic issues, such as diabetes or fibromyalgia. Plan accordingly and make sure you have supplies on hand to combat them. Ready to go? Don't forget the smile. Don't forget to pack the most important thing for any trip, a great attitude. This small item can make the worst disaster into a hilarious story and get you through a difficult situation with authorities and can take the biggest lemon and make lemonade out of it. After all, how can it be terrible? You're in England. A trip to England will be full of wonderful memories, historic experiences, and meeting wonderful folks. Whether you get addicted like I have or are happy with going once and treasuring the memory forever, you will have an exquisite time.